Hello there, this is Chris Benson. Welcome to my new show here on Drystone Radio. Fridays 4 till 5 is the place to be. I am at the front of the Wakefield 10k lineup. Here the runners come. 2,500 runners today, and here are the first of them. It's the 28th Wakefield 10k. Great turnout, always is. It's fully booked this year, and great support on the main road just in the distance. We'll also have a mini quiz for you, so get your pens and papers at the ready. A mini quiz to test your brains during the next hour as well. So every Friday you'll have the choice of listening on Drystone Radio between 4 and 5, or you can watch in video format on YouTube as well. You're spoilt for choice. Hello, well, I've had a delivery and I think I know what it is, but I'm still excited about this. So I'm just gonna open it up if I can get into it. A very well packaged box. So looks like it's 2 titles in this. It is really well packaged. So I'm just going to open it up. Lots of tissue. And here they are. And then on here, slim cases I should add. We've got Robert Palmer's Rhythm and Blues. Often people forget about this album, but we've got 12 tracks on that. We're going to go through it track by track. There you go. There's the track listing on the back. Let's give them a listen. So I've just took the cellophane off Rhythm and Blues. Ooh, this opens up. I like that. Love the artwork inside. So we've got a little booklet as well. Wow, didn't expect that. So we've got the artwork. Look at that. Absolutely brilliant. I'm guessing this is the original artwork from Rhythm and Blues. So that comes with it. And then the CD, which comes out both sides, is there. Perfect, look at that. Absolutely sensational. Can't wait to give it a play. So, aside from the 2025 reissue, I made a couple of side purchases to go along with this review. So, the first one is this, which is the original 1999 UK release of the album, Rhythm and Blues. So, I'll put the track listing on the screen because it does vary from the 2025 reissue. It's a different order. But aside from that as well, there's also a track that you don't get on the 2025 reissue. And indeed, that was the American track listing. So we don't get on the new 2025 reissue Tennis, which is track 11. So I played it. It's only 4 minutes and 12 seconds to be precise. But it's a brilliant track. I love it. Really do like it. Quite quirky. But it wasn't much, a couple of pound, but it was definitely worth adding to the Robert Palmer collection. So, if anything, the 2025 reissue, I think, loses something that could have added, perhaps as a bonus track. Tennis would have been a brilliant addition. There's also a Japanese version, which includes 3 tracks that you don't get on the American and the UK releases. One of them is where Robert Palmer's covering the long and winding road. Now, this seems to go for quite a lot of money on various sites. I haven't got that yet, so I will keep my eyes peeled for that. But I've got the UK and American releases now. But if you do want Tennis, you're going to have to buy the original UK release. It's not on the 2025 reissue. The other thing I bought is the single for True Love. Now, this has got 3 tracks, and it's got a True Love radio edit, True Love extended mix, and Big Shot. So the radio edit is slightly shorter. The radio edit of True Love is slightly shorter than the 4 minute 19 version that's on the album. But then you've got the extended mix, and I think I appreciated the song more with the extended mix. I think I enjoyed it more hearing the extended mix of this single. But I also enjoyed Big Shot. Again, a really quirky sound, really quirky song, and definitely worth buying. I think just to hear Big Shot, it's quite a short song actually. But for that and the extended mix, this is definitely worth hunting down. It was the only single off the album as well. But I'll just show you inside. So there you go. That's that. Again, it would have been great to have Big Shot, and it would have been great to have the extended mix tracks that were available at the time on this new 2025 reissue. There would have certainly been room on the CD, but perhaps licensing issues have prevented that. So now on Drystone Radio, or indeed on YouTube, it's time for my talking music review of Robert Palmer's 13th studio album, Rhythm and Blues, which has been reissued. So it was first released in Japan in October 1998, before being released elsewhere in 1999, and it was his first new album release in 5 years, the last album being Honey. But I really wanted to tell you about it because obviously everyone with Robert Palmer thinks Addicted to Love, Power Station, and there's a lot more to Robert Palmer, and even songs you won't have heard of. This is absolutely, I really enjoyed revisiting this album. It's been a long time since I've listened to it. Now, the album only reached number 118 in the charts in the UK, and it didn't even chart in the US. Robert Palmer's long-term girlfriend, Mary Ambrose, arranged strings and sang background vocals on 20 Million Things. Sharon O'Neill co-wrote True Love, and she also provided backing vocals on 20 Million Things. The album's only single, True Love, peaked at number 94 in the UK. I feel like it should have done a lot better. So what do we get on the new reissue, the 2025 reissue? Well, we get the US track listing. So if you bought this album back in 1999, the track listing might look a little bit different. So let's go for the US track listing based on the reissue, and I'll just show you there in video format what the back looks like. So track 1, the album's only single, True Love. We'll come back to this track in just a minute. Track 2 is No Problem. Track 3, Let's Get It On 99. Of course, it's all right, but Marvin Gaye's version is brilliant, and this isn't a patch on the original for me. Track 4 is a track called Stone Cold. Track 5 is called Sex Appeal. Track 6 is Work to Make It Work. Again, a remake of a Robert Palmer song from his album Pressure Drop. And again, I prefer the original, if I'm honest. I prefer the second half of the album, and for me, from track 7 onwards, I think it drastically improves. Track 7, we've got All the Will in the World. The songs sound more experimental, and for me, Robert Palmer's vocals stand out better in this half of songs. And I do like this track, All the Will in the World. Track 8, You're Not the Only One. It's a funky number, and again, I really like this one. Number 9, Mr. Wise Guy. We then got track 10, I Choose You. Track 11 is Dance for Me, which is a remake from his 1983 album, Pride. It's the best of the 1999 remakes, I'd say. I think it's done really well. Track 12 is 20 Million Things. We hear Robert Palmer, we hear him raw, and it's a wonderful track, a great end to the album. I do like 20 Million Things. Now, as I say, the UK and Canadian track listings feature all the same songs that I've just discussed, with the exception that the Dance for Me 1999 remake is replaced by a track on this one, but there, Tennis. So we get Tennis on the UK and Canadian versions, which was written by Robert Palmer. Again, on the UK version as well, the tracks appeared in a different order. So what can I tell you about tennis? I've just bought this off eBay actually. It's a really good track, a really interesting track. It might only be 4 minutes and 12 seconds long, but it's worth getting that extra copy just to hear tennis. I mentioned the Japanese issue in 1998. That is quite expensive to get hold of, but you get 3 tracks that didn't appear on the UK or the American releases. You get tracks called Captured, Spellbound, and a cover of The Long and Winding Road. So it'd be interesting to hear these and get hold of them at some point. And now I also bought True Love, which is the single that I mentioned that didn't chart very well in the UK. So I bought this off eBay. We get a radio edit, slightly shorter than the album version. We get an extended mix of True Love, which I really liked actually. I think I preferred it to the original version. And we also get Big Shot, a track which doesn't appear on the album. So for those watching in video format, that's what the inside looks. But again, for a couple of pound, this was a brilliant addition to my collection to accompany the American and UK releases. So there you go. That's Rhythm and Blues. Definitely an album worth checking out. I really enjoyed listening to this one and just being able to reappreciate it 26 years after release. I hope that review was useful. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and more Talking Music reviews coming very, very soon. That's it from me. Bye for now. And if you love Robert Palmer, we've got reviews of Live at the Apollo and his back catalogue, The Island Years, as well, coming up very soon here on this channel. So right now on Drystone Radio, or if you're watching on YouTube, it's time for our weekly mini quiz. Get your pens and papers at the ready. 10 questions to get your brains going. So mark them out of 10. I think some of them are easy, some of them not so easy. I think you'll be all right, though. I hope you'll enjoy it anyway. So the idea is every Friday we'll do a mini quiz as part of the show. So are you all ready? You can play on your own, or you can play with a team, and feel free to compare your scores. Please do. Right, number 1. Physicist Albert Einstein was born in which country? Multiple choice, this one. Was it A, Sweden, B, Switzerland, or C, Germany? So physicist Albert Einstein was born in which country? Was it A, Sweden, B, Switzerland, or C, Germany? All right, so that's number 1. Number 2, Jack Dorsey founded which social network in March 2006? So this one isn't multiple choice. Jack Dorsey founded which social network in March 2006? All right. How are you doing so far? Number 3, Audrey Tautou, Tautou, Audrey Tautou plays which title character in a 2001 French happy-go-lucky film? So Audrey Tautou plays which title character in which 2001 French happy-go-lucky film? Which film? Number 4. What is the capital city of Bangladesh? What is the capital city of Bangladesh? All right, that's number 4 for you. Number 5. Tricky one, number 5, I think. Be interesting to see how many know this one. Number 5. Which British architect, born in 1935, is best known for buildings including the Stansted Airport Terminal Building, London's Millennium Footbridge, the Gherkin, and the new Wembley Stadium? I'll repeat that. Which British architect, born in 1935, is best known for buildings including the Stansted Airport Terminal Building, London's Millennium Footbridge, the Gherkin, and the new Wembley Stadium? All right. Have a guess. You might as well have a guess. Number 6 for you. Which celebrity chef wrote an autobiography called Devil in the Kitchen? So which celebrity chef wrote an autobiography called Devil in the Kitchen? All right, 4 more to go. Number 7. The Tan Hill Inn in North Yorkshire holds which distinction? Holds a particular record. What record is it? So the Tan Hill Inn in North Yorkshire holds which distinction? I think you'll know that one. So 3 more to go. Number 8. Which is the larger island? Is it Greenland or Iceland? So which is the larger island? Greenland or Iceland? All right. Number 9. Amarel, Mayduke, and Morello. They're all types of which fruit? So Amarel, Mayduke, and Morello are all types of which fruit? Are you on for 9 out of 9 so far? Maybe you are. The final one, anyway, in this week's mini quiz, number 10, is on football. So number 10, which English club won 2 Intercities Fairs Cups in 1968 and 1971? So was it A, Leicester City, B, Sheffield Wednesday, or C, Leeds United? So I'll repeat that. Which English club won 2 Intercities Fairs Cups in 1968 and 1971? Was it A, Leicester City, B, Sheffield Wednesday, or C, Leeds United? All right, make sure you've got an answer for all those 10. And in just a moment, we're going to go through the answers. Time now to mark your answers for our mini quiz. How did you get on? So number 1, physicist Albert Einstein was born in, was it A, Sweden, B, Switzerland, or C, Germany? It was C, Germany. Jack Dorsey founded which social network in March 2006? It was Twitter. Audrey Tautou plays which title character in the 2001 French happy-go-lucky film? It was Amelie. 4, the capital city of Bangladesh was Dhaka. Number 5, the British architect born in 1935, best known for buildings including the Stansted Airport Terminal Building, London's Millennium Footbridge, the Gherkin, the new Wembley Stadium, Norman Foster. 6, the celebrity chef that wrote an autobiography called Devil in the Kitchen was Marco Pierre White. 7, the Tan Hill Inn in North Yorkshire holds which distinction, which record? It's the highest pub in Britain. Have you put anything like that? Well done. Number 8, which is the larger island, Greenland or Iceland? It is Greenland. 9, Amarel, Mayduke, and Morello are all types of which fruit? The answer is cherry. And number 10, which English club won 2 Intercities Fairs Cups in 1968 and 1971? Was it A, Leicester City, B, Sheffield Wednesday, or C, Leeds United? It was C, Leeds United. So there you go, mark it out of 10, and we'll be back doing it all again, another mini quiz at the same time next week. Now, at any time during the week, you can email me, chris.benson@drystoneradio.com. I'd love to hear from you. Maybe there's a song that you'd like to hear in future weeks on the radio version. Or if you've got any comments about anything that you've heard, do get in touch and I'll read them out next week. So that's chris.benson@drystoneradio.com. Right now, you're in for a treat. Part 1 of a brilliant interview that I did with broadcasting legend Elton Welsby. He's just got his new autobiography out called Game for a Laugh. Elton was the leading ITV sport presenter for the match between 1988 and 1992, worked for Granada Television from 1978 to the year 2000. Such an iconic career. So here is part 1 of that interview. So right now on Drystone Radio, when I was growing up in Granada land, I had 2 idols, really, people that I wanted to be. The late, great Tony Wilson, and the other person is on the phone right now. It's Elton Welsby. Elton, a very good evening to you.
Chris, I'm flattered to be mentioned in the same sentence as the late, great Anthony H. Wilson.
Oh, you were, but growing up, I think it was
great
because
great friend.
Oh,
great friend of mine. Yeah.
I mean, Granada, we were genuinely spoilt, and don't get me started on what regional TV is like now, but we were spoiled with the budget that Granada had, and before things changed with ITV. I mean, we'll talk about Granada in just a moment, but one of the things that I was watching recently, though, and just to throw a curveball in, is there was a clip that surfaced on YouTube of you hosting the opening ceremony for the Seoul Olympics during Channel 4's coverage. What was that like?
Surreal. we, strange enough, a lot of people, most people, in fact, thought that we'd actually gone to Seoul. Well, we were based at the studio in London, at the Thames studio in London. But they decked it out in a very oriental kind of way, and it made it look as if we were actually in Seoul, and we weren't. We were in London, not far from Euston Station.
It was a random. You had Barry Norman as one of the presenters from memory, didn't you? It was. How did you negotiate though with the BBC, like to make sure that you weren't showing the same sports? I mean, did you get much say into what sports, ITV and Channel 4 followed? How did that work?
Well, we did show the same sport at the same time as the BBC. I was doing the Through the Night version, which was I was on pretty much 12:30 till 8 o'clock in the morning. So all the sports, certainly the blue ribbon events that went on throughout the night, we'd cut to them, and so would the Beeb at the same time. Although I have no idea about the Beeb's coverage. I don't even know who was my opposite number, if you like, at the BBC. Because I was flying solo with a great panel of guests in the studio. And we were totally unaware of what the BBC might be doing. But I know for a fact that for those who did watch throughout the night, they chose us because we had a star-studded panel. And we didn't take it all that too seriously, to be truthful. We were there to have. I think the producers decided that they wanted something a bit more off the cuff, a bit more light-hearted, at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, rather than your typical BBC presentation. Well, now we go over to the show jumping. We say, hey, Harvey, we've got show. Harvey Smith would be with me, for example. And I said, Harvey, we're going over to the show jumping now. What do you think? We'll see. Happen, Very blunt Yorkshireman, So, but we had a real good laugh. We really did.
It was a shame when like you say, ITV didn't go for the coverage after that, and I think it was a shame really because I
It
think
was the last time ITV did the Olympics.
it
Yeah.
was, yeah. And
Yeah.
the clip that
88.
it was 88, and the clip where you're doing the opening ceremony. I mean, as well as keeping the viewers interested and with all the ad breaks, you really, I thought the professionalism when the way you got them to come back and the kind of the jumping from it, honestly, I thought it was excellent coverage.
The book starts really when I started my journalistic career, which was in 1970 at a newspaper called the Liverpool Weekly News. From there, I went to Radio City, and from Radio City to Granada. And then, as well as working for Granada, I was snapped up by the ITV network to do the results service in 86, which led to the match in 88. So the book covers all of that and more.
And obviously, Radio City, you were joining Radio City at a time where commercial radio was in its infancy as well. What was that like?
I think there were only 2 other commercial radio stations on the air before us. One, would it be Capital? Would it be in London?
I think you're right. I think that started 73, I think. Yeah.
And also Piccadilly Radio in Manchester. They were slightly ahead of us. But we came along in October 1974, October the 21st to be absolutely precise. That was the first day of Radio City being on air, and I was doing within the news bulletins. I'd do a sports update, and that was my first time on radio. Yeah,
and you was doing like you say, sports reporting and commentary work for them. Was it just kind of was it across the divisions that the commentary focused on? Was it kind of all the Merseyside teams?
Well, not really. Everton weren't having a particularly good. Everton weren't having a particularly good time from 1974 for the time I was at Radio City, for the period I was at Radio City, which was 3.5 years. I basically became synonymous with Liverpool because I was commentating on Liverpool games as they were winning the title in '76, the UEFA Cup in 76, and also then going on to the European Cup in 1977, Liverpool's first ever victorious season in Europe, in the European Cup, in the what is now the Champions League. And they won, of course, they won the UEFA Cup in 1976, which is now, if the closest you could describe it, will be the Europa League.
That's an unbelievable time to be involved and commentating on Liverpool and obviously working with all the people behind the scenes, isn't it, Elton?
Well, I put a lot of it down to luck. Basically because I'm well, originally from St Helens, but basically I'm a Scouser. So when Radio City came along, it was an ideal vehicle for me to get involved in what I ultimately wanted to do, which was broadcasting. But I could have been, say, from Cumbria, and I've said this many times, I could have been working for Radio Carlisle, covering Carlisle United, or Radio Cumbria, whatever it's called. I really don't know. But I could have been out in the sticks somewhere and no one would have heard me or would have appreciated what I was doing. The fact I was covering Liverpool at home and abroad for that period of time brought me, brought me to the attention of others.
And I imagine that compared to nowadays, journalists were perhaps allowed to get a lot closer to the players, perhaps even on non-match days and training days. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely right. Yes. There were no mobile phones in those days. So if I need to ring a player, for an interview for Radio City, I just ring that player at home, on his landline, and just say, oh, or have I come to Melwood tomorrow and do an interview after training? Yeah, sure, El, no problem. We were all mates. I used to travel on the team coach. He used to fly with the team when they were going into games in Europe, just with them all the time. It was remarkable. When you look back at it, it was remarkable because you compare it to today, where it seems to me that like the press, whether it be the written press, radio, TV, are sort of kept at arm's length away from, the players and the managers and what have you. In my time, when I started out in the business, it was kind of, we were all in it together, and they seemed to appreciate that I had a job to do. And that I was, in some ways, helping them in terms of developing their personalities and characters and what have you. It was a very, very amicable relationship we had.
And sticking with Radio City, there was just something in the back of my mind then. Didn't Bob Paisley have a show on Radio City at one point? I've got in my head someone he interviewed. Didn't he interview the Prime Minister or something like that?
You're talking about Bill Shankly, my friend.
Oh, you see, I was so close. Oh, there was something in my head then. I was like, oh.
Bob Paisley's predecessor, the one and only Bill Shankly. There was only one Bill Shankly. He could never be mistaken for Bob Paisley. He couldn't be mistaken for anybody. He was unique. The greatest character I've ever met in all my years in football, in TV as well. I never met anyone quite like Bill Shankly. And yes, you're right. When he retired from Liverpool after the cup final in 1974, when Liverpool beat Newcastle quite comfortably 3-0, unlike what happened more recently. And he was kind of at a loose end. And our managing director was a guy called Terry Smith, who knew Bill and Terry became a director of Liverpool a few years after this. And he says to Bill, how would you like to have a chat show on Radio City? Shanks agreed, and it was all set up. I was kind of co-producer on that series. The producer was a guy called Wally Scott, a legend on Merseyside. And Bill's very first guest was Harold Wilson when he was Prime Minister. It was uncanny. It was absolutely, it was unreal. You tell people that now and they sort of dismiss it as fantasy. but it happens. I've actually, in my phone, I have a photograph of the two of them sat in the studio in Stanley Street in Liverpool, with Wilson with his pipe in his mouth, a pint of bitter on the table, talking to Bill Shankly.
That
I'll
is
tell you, one of
crazy.
the questions Bill put to Wilson was, he said, I'll lapse into a couple of impressions here. Harold, because they got on first name terms. When he first sat down, the first question, Bill said, Prime Minister, and Shank said, call me Bill, call me Harold. Now, Harold, who was the very first socialist? And Wilson sort of goes, would you be talking about Ramsay MacDonald, Bill? No, Jesus Christ. It was radio gold. It was
Goodness.
absolutely, it
I
was
would love it if
wonderful.
that turned up one day. That'd be amazing if it turned up one day, wouldn't it? It really would. So was it hard to, obviously with the Radio City experience, was it hard to jump to Granada? Because I think you started as a researcher, didn't you, on kickoff and the kickoff match? But
Yeah,
obviously
yeah,
then,
sure.
what was
Yeah.
that like to move to transition to Granada in '78?
Well, I never held a microphone or saw a camera for 6 months. And to be truthful, if during that time someone had said, right, you can just go back and pick up where you left off at Radio City, I probably would have done, because I found it a bit disheartening the first 6 months. But it was all part of the training process, which I didn't fully appreciate at the time. But when I was let loose, I had enough experience behind the scenes to know exactly what was required when you were, say, sat at a desk with a camera pointed at you, and you had to speak and deliver whatever information you happened to have at the time.
What was the typical weekend like? Because obviously there was the Friday kind of the magazine show, and then it was either Saturday night or Sunday afternoon, depending on when the rights were at the time. Did you watch the kind of the live feed of the games? Did you watch the highlights after they were done to kind of get an idea of what had happened? What did your weekend look like?
Well, once I'd become established on screen, 1979. Then we do the kickoff, the regional magazine show, previewing the weekend's football on a Friday night between 6:30 and 7. And then on Saturday, we go to we'd have a highlights program on the Sunday. So we go to whichever match was our main game on the Saturday. Obviously record that, do the after-match interviews, and then about half an hour later do a load of links into the other two games that which select from the other ITV regions, i.e. it could have been a London game where Brian Moore would be commentating, a Midlands game where Hugh Johns would be commentating, a Yorkshire game, for example, where John Helm would be commentating, or Tyne Tees, where Roger Thames would be commentating. So we pick the two best games out of all the other ITV regions. And so we go into our highlights program called the Kickoff Match on a Sunday afternoon, all pre-recorded on the Saturday, with our main game, usually from either Goodison, Anfield, Main Road, or Old Trafford, usually, not always, followed by the pick of the games from London, the Midlands, Yorkshire, or Tyne Tees. So there'd be three programs, highlights of three programs, three matches, should I say, on the Sunday afternoon.
And I really like the format. I mean, I know some of the 83 episodes have been repeated on the Big Match Revisited, but I think we were spoiled with the extended highlights that you got. You really got to you got into the kind of the juices of a game, didn't you?
Oh gosh, yes. And also we used to regularly do midweek highlights, Wednesday night highlights.
Soccer nights.
Granada Soccer Night.
Do you know what?
Still
It was the
mix.
program that I used to sneakily stay up to watch, and my mum and dad would think I'd be asleep. But I tell you what, I used to absolutely love Soccer Night. It was, I know it ran. I think it started in 1990, didn't it? Because Granada wanted. Was it
No,
coverage
no,
of?
no, no,
No, was
no.
it earlier than that?
I was doing Soccer Night in 1980.
Wow. So it
Yeah,
started midweek, started as early as that, right?
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Midweek highlights programs, yeah.
And you'll be pleased to know that part 2 of that interview with Elton Welsby will be right here on Drystone Radio next Friday. Don't miss it. And a reminder that Game for a Laugh is out now, all the usual stockists. And a big thanks to Elton Welsby there. And look out for that. Brilliant, brilliant interview. Right, don't forget you can email chris.benson@drystoneradio.com. I'd love to hear from you during the week. So let me know if you've been listening, where you've been listening as well. But anyway, that is it for this week's show. I'll be back next week at the same time on Drystone Radio or on YouTube if you're watching as well. Hope you've all enjoyed it out there. But enjoy your weekend, whatever you're up to, and I'll see you then. Bye for now.